Hello, everybody, and welcome to Lesson 4, the next lesson in our adult Sabbath School Bible study. My name is Monique, and I'm joined with Irina and Pastor Sasha. And today we're going to talk a little bit about what the Bible tells us about self, community, and government. And I'm really interested to ask Pastor Sasha a question about Nimrod in specific. So, Genesis 10:10, and the beginning of his kingdom was Babel. We have here a kingdom and essentially a king, maybe Nimrod, maybe not a king in the sense of David or Saul or any of the kings we know later on, but a man at the head of a kingdom sounds like a king to me. And he's got a lot of power. He's got a lot of nations underneath him.
Yeah.
What is to be said about these nations? Babel, we know a little bit about, but there's a lot of other things happening under the dominion of Nimrod.
Oh, yeah. So let's unpack this guy, because this is very interesting situation here. Take a look at Genesis chapter 10. It's not possible to read all chapters, all the verses, but when you look at this chapter from like a bird's eye view, what do you see?
It looks like genealogy. Yeah, just mostly people, places, and things.
Names.
Yeah.
This is one of the chapters. I mean, this is not the longest chapter in the Bible that, I remember one preacher said about the book of Chronicles, you read it like a telephone book.
Yeah, pretty much.
Because it's names, and names. And so in the world of, relevancy and practicality, which we live today, what kind of practical, sons of Japheth, sons of Cam, and all of this?
It doesn't serve much purpose other than, looking into somebody's history. I know that's really common right now. People get their DNA tested to see where they come from and where their relatives are from and all this types of thing.
But that's even if you know those people.
Exactly. And what does that do for you? Exactly. So it's like whether you know them is really the
Yeah, and
key.
Especially this is the tongue breakers for English speakers.
Oh, yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah, you gotta just glaze over it. You don't even sit there and try to pronounce it, especially if you're just like reading by yourself at home. You're like, I can read it in my head, but out loud, not necessary.
Yeah.
And you just kind of glaze over.
It's like,
and
this is the account of Habathapatha,
yeah,
and it was in the world of Habathapatha.
exactly.
Yeah, that's the challenge with this. But what is interesting in the text like this, so you got these genealogy lists like you noticed, but suddenly in the middle of it you get somebody picked, and this one who was picked is a story about him. Mm-hmm. So that's what I'm suggesting you to read a little more. So take a look at verses 6 through 9.
The sons of Ham: Cush, Egypt, Put, and Canaan. The sons of Cush: Seba.
Don't work too hard on the verse 7. Don't worry, just skip to verse 8.
Verse 8 it is.
Cut to the chase.
Literally, we tried to tell you we don't read these names out loud.
He said 6. I'm assuming it's going to include 7. All right. Genesis 10, verse 8. Cush was the father of Nimrod, who became a mighty warrior on the earth. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord. That is why it is said, like Nimrod, a mighty hunter before the Lord.
Yeah, so we're getting a little glance into the genealogy of the second son of Noah, Cam, who is considered to be, for whatever reason, the worst.
Which one was the one that saw his nakedness?
It was actually not. It was Cam.
Oh.
That's why he was the worst.
Yeah, okay. Just wanted to make sure.
And so
Yes, the
Noah, cursed his son in a way. And so the popular myth is that people who live in Africa are the sons of Cam.
Lit.
Wrong.
Okay.
That's a myth.
Okay. Is it because it's something that we can actually like? I feel like that's something that people can track, like right where each son
settle
right?
down.
Correct. Mm-hmm. I can assure you that most of the, Africa is a huge continent to begin with. Mm-hmm. There are all kinds of different people groups and language groups.
Well, some of them don't even look nothing like each other.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, but even if they track back to the same ancestor, it's going to be real far back.
Yeah, real far.
Doesn't matter. Most of them are the descendants of Japheth.
Which is the third one?
Yeah,
Lit.
because it says the Lord will enlarge the tents of Japheth. So 90% of the world population today comes from Japheth.
Oh, wow.
There are certain groups of people like Jews, Arabs, and some Ethiopians. They come from Shem.
Okay.
And, like when we look at this Ham, like we see Mitzrayim, or you read it as Egypt, which is correct. Mm-hmm. But this, Egypt has two major population groups. Mm-hmm. The Muslims, who are Arabs, and the Christians. Christians are the original descendants of the pharaohs.
Oh, the more you know.
Yeah. So there's nothing to do with with indigenous sub-Saharan African population with Cam. These are the descendants of Japheth, as the Europeans too, as Chinese too. So the reason why I decided to emphasize this, because some of these ideas, some of these commentaries, mainly popular commentaries, they have this racial theories, different races connected with different sons of Noah. No. Majority and all, like the descendants of Japheth includes all the races.
Mm-hmm.
My gears are turning right now.
I
like
know.
a mile a minute. But I'm here, guys. I'm still here. Keep going.
No, right.
I'm just trying to take it all in.
Were you shocked?
Yes.
A little bit.
My jaw hit the floor. I don't know if you heard it rattling on the ground. I'm actually really surprised. It makes sense, I guess, but I didn't expect that high of a percentage. You'd think it'd be closer to a third because there's 3.
Right.
But I'm like, what happened? Did the descendants of Ham and Shem, I don't know, abstain or something? Like, why did they not have that much?
So you see Canaan, which are the smaller country.
Okay.
And you have some countries that are small, some countries that are big. Mm-hmm. And it's just the geography,
Okay.
That's just the geography. But Canaan is a very small place. There's no river. There's no... actually, the amount of population is strictly geographical. It depends on the rivers and access to the oceans. And the rivers are the most important because they are the ones that feed the people. The more people the river can feed, the more population you can have. Otherwise, it will be like, famines like in Sahel region,
So it's more like a geographical thing.
Oh, yeah, it's more of a geographical. It's nothing to do. And so here is this Cush who happened to father Nimrod.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And so here it talks about him as being a hunter. But then, besides the hunter, as you're right, Monique, he was the king. Let's take a look. I wish we could have a geographical map of the region, but let's take a read, verse 10.
The first centers of his kingdom were Babylon, Uruk, Akkad, and Calneh in Shinar.
Yes. So let's remember Shinar.
Okay.
It's going to be very important. But we are dealing with the ancient city-states. Archaeologists will point a time which is about the 4th millennium BC, where the first cities, and a city has to have a wall. It's not like a not like a farming community. It has to be walled. So that's the center of trade. That's what the city is all about. A little bit of ancient history here. And so these are all cities in Mesopotamia. And Mesopotamia is 2 rivers, Tigris, Euphrates, which is modern day Iraq.
Yep.
So, as you can see, they're the sons of Cam. And Hush could be very easily, based on what we have, Erech and Kalne, very possible these are old cities of the most ancient nation known today, Sumerians. Have you heard of them?
Yeah, like I want to say
Once or
Sanskrit,
twice.
but I feel like that's not correct. Sumerians, it's like a language or like an alphabet or something like that. A calendar,
Yeah,
maybe?
correct. It's not. It's Sumerians. Yeah, they're the most ancient writing system.
Writing, okay.
Writing
Yeah.
system.
They're not alphabetical though. They're cuneiform.
Right, okay.
Sure. Whatever that is.
Like hieroglyphs,
Cuneiform-
right?
Yeah. No. Hieroglyphs is Egyptian. Hieroglyphs, they put pictures, and each picture is a small word. Cuneiform is done a little bit of a different. Hieroglyphs, you kind of draw them. Cuneiform, you have a wedge and you have a clay, and you kind of wedge things into the soft clay, and then you bake it, and then you make a clay tablet.
That's those big tablets that they would
Correct.
discover. Oh. Yeah, those do not look readable to me.
No.
Wait. Okay, so then another thing that I find really interesting about the story, Nimrod as a whole, yes, especially because this is the first, not only the most ancient civilization that we can kind of track, we can actually track through history, but the first establishing of a civilization since the flood. And it's something that I don't want to lose. I don't want to get off this road quite yet, but it's really making me start to think about the language of the time, especially since now we're talking about cuneiform and how exactly it does not look legible.
No.
It's nothing like any
Sticks and dots
Exactly.
and little zigzag lines.
exactly. If you
I
were
tell
readable to
you
me.
one thing. The Akkadian, this Akkad, the Akkadian cuneiform, and Babylonians use Akkadian cuneiform.
Right.
They have about like alphabet. Hebrew alphabet is 22 letters. English alphabet is, I forgot how many.
26.
I was going to say, I think it's 26.
Yeah, thank you. So, welcome to the world of cuneiform. About 800 signs.
And that's the thing, right? Is in your, like, I don't even want to say professional opinion, but like in your historical researching and what you know and what you understand about language, about Hebrew, about the Bible, and about the history of the time, like, is it fair to even think or assume that cuneiform is pretty closely related to the language that they had before it was confused?
Not really. That's more interesting. So before we get into the language, and I really want to answer this question, but let's look at the situation. So here is, as you say, Nimrod was the first known emperor.
Right.
So maybe not even a king.
Right.
Is there a
'cause, yeah.
difference?
It's
Emperor and king?
Well, just a bigger.
Okay.
Because he is, look, all these towns.
Okay,
So
okay.
he was able to unite the cities under one state. So Sinar or Shinar, it's the name of his country. Let's jump into chapter 11 and read verses 1 and 2 for now.
Now the whole world had one language and a common speech. As people moved eastward, they found a plain in Shinar and settled there.
Yeah. So, as you can see, this is basically a repetition of the story. You saw Shinar there, and it says, Nimrod was the king of the land of Shinar. And now we have a story a little bit from, like you have Genesis 1 and Genesis 2 repeating the same story of creation with a different emphasis and details. Genesis 2 emphasizes creation of man, where Genesis 1 is just 7-day creation, or 6 days described in Genesis 1. But here is the same. Genesis 10 describes, 9 flood finished. Here is Noah, and that's the story of his descendants. So Shem, Ham, Japheth. Now it's the same. Moses takes some details of the story. Now he's going to describe it to us. So it's not. So first he describes Nimrod, not accidentally. He describes Nimrod as, the king of the Shinar. And now we see that he was a king of all people who existed on the earth, because they just settled there. So basically, when we're talking about the most ancient civilization in Mesopotamia, and historians and archaeologists say Mesopotamia is the cradle of humanity, Bible describes to us exactly that. So they knew. Now they don't want to get around, they want to be in this one country. It's comfortable between two rivers, and I just explained that rivers, they support population.
Right.
Because you can plant the field, you can grow the crops, you can feed yourself. So why do we need to go somewhere where we don't know? Here we know.
Right.
And the population is not as huge as, what is it now? 10 billions? I forgot.
don't even know anymore.
Yeah, so it's not even close to that. So we're dealing with a smaller population, and they just stuck there. So their king is Nimrod. So the entire earth, you see what's the problem? That's where we got to.
Right.
So we have a situation where this fellow, kind of a hunter, the grandson of Cam,
Right.
he is the king of all the earth.
Pretty much. Yeah.
As far as anybody else is concerned. And I don't even want to glaze over the fact that he's a mighty hunter. So he's strong, he's kind of threatening, and
They got that point across pretty well there.
Exactly. There's nobody really that can stand against him.
Right.
And it's very interesting to me too to think a hunter is different from somebody I could compare him maybe to David. David has similar strength, but only more so in a defense type of thing to defend his sheep. But Nimrod as a hunter, offense, fully offense.
Right, and it also mentions that it's he took after his father, so it's you can almost expect this guy to, he's got some stuff to back it up. He was taught by a good hunter. His father was a hunter. It's generational almost.
Right.
So it's that's already a little.
Exactly. Yeah, he's got a lot behind him, not just physical brute force, but names and history.
Right.
Now let's take a look at verse 3 and 4.
They said to each other, "Come, let's make bricks and bake them thoroughly." They used bricks instead of stone, and tar for mortar. I'm going to reread that. Mortar?
Yeah.
Okay. They said to each other, "Come, let's make bricks and bake them thoroughly." They used bricks instead of stone, and tar for mortar. Then they said, "Come, let us build ourselves a city with a tower that reaches to the heavens, so that we may make a name for ourselves. Otherwise we will be scattered over the face of the whole earth."
So, what's the purpose here?
To look cool, pretty much,
pretty much.
in plain terms.
Yeah, they want to assume for themselves a similar, not a similar reputation as Nimrod, but I feel like they see the power of reputation, of strength, of power, of, being able to have something and achieve something that other people don't have.
But for whose benefit? Who are they showing up in front of?
Honestly,
that's
exactly.
you're asking the right question.
Oh.
Let's focus on this. They want a name. Take a look at something else here. Take a look with me at Genesis chapter 4, verses 25 and 26.
Adam made love to his wife again, and she gave birth to a son and named him Seth, saying, God has granted me another child in place of Abel, since Cain killed him. Seth also had a son, and he named him Enosh. At that time, people began to call on the name of the Lord.
Do you see the contrast here?
Yeah. Not yet. I see something. But I don't
You
know.
see name and name. Think about this. At the time when Seth was born to Adam, and Adam's grandson Enosh began a tradition to call upon the name of the Lord.
Okay.
And under the governance of Nimrod, in Genesis chapter 11, they want what kind of name?
A new one? A name for themselves?
Name for themselves. You see the contrast?
Okay.
There's a conflict here. Instead of calling, so God wanted for his name to be called upon, but they choose to call upon whose name do you think?
Okay. I want to say their own, okay? And
But that's really broad.
that's really broad. And exactly, I do have to agree, you are asking the right question, because what is the motivation? I can't just easily say that it's just internal motivation. It's something that they have within themselves, especially.
Like, are they competing with God, or what's going on?
They've got to
here?
be, because Nimrod, it says somewhere that he like stood against the Lord or before the Lord, kind of like in opposition, as if an opponent, how you stand before an opponent, right? And especially when they want to they want to have a name for themselves, it makes me think of the story when Jesus is talking to like the Pharisees or somebody, and he's like, you do the will of your father, like the devil. Because like the way that they're behaving is much like how the devil behaves. And that is what this is giving me right now.
A little bit. I could see that.
Upon a name for themselves. And so that tells me, again, that like this is an external motivation. They're kind of being coerced and hypnotized, convinced, or something by some evil
by
hands.
whom do you think?
By some evil, wicked hands by the name of Lucifer, to do something that they really should not be doing.
Lucifer, yeah, but Nimrod is exactly.
Oh, man.
Well,
It's Nimrod
through
because
Nimrod in that
yeah,
case.
for
Yeah,
sure, for
'cause I
sure.
mean, yeah.
But I mean, look, I mean, I remember in Nazi Germany, every woman wanted to be impregnated by Adolf Hitler. That's how people brainwashed.
Yeah.
And all this
Stunning.
whole ideology, Nazi ideology, people identify themselves with that, but really it was the name of Hitler who was making, Germany, and he was doing it for his own sake.
Right.
The same way as Stalin was doing it for his own sake in USSR, and so many examples, I would never forget, the most, you talk about Hitler, about Stalin, these evil monsters and extremely smart monsters, I would say. But, like Central African Republic, there was this guy, Bokassa. He was cannibal, and he claimed himself emperor. It was just such a travesty. French kept him for whatever political reason, maybe because of some diamonds or uranium, but this guy was a travesty, and everything was around his name. But any kind of country like this that's going to happen. So what we have here is you're right. When you asked this question, Monique, it was like political. This is a political entity. The first ever empire in the world was called Shinar. The king there was Nimrod, who was just, through hunting, whatever kind of thing, he was able, he was definitely a very manipulative person.
Yeah. But he had the power necessary to have a whole, nation, the first ever nation, I guess, hypnotized.
Yeah. Yeah. And people, all basically, almost everybody on this earth agreed to start assembling the bricks and building this, foolish tower.
So then I guess if we can find a way to bring this to an end pretty quickly here, what made taking the language and confusing the language the solution?
Well,
was it necessary almost in the first place? How much of a genuine threat could that tower have been? Really?
Well, tower itself.
Tower is a tower.
It's a symbol.
It's gonna fall.
Yeah. If you build like the highest building you can build out of brick type of construction,
Right.
It's an Empire State Building. You build something higher than that, what's
It's gonna get real sketchy.
It's going to collapse on itself just under its own weight. That's why when they build higher skyscrapers like this Burj Khalifa in Dubai, they have to use lots of metal and all kinds of different techniques. But the bricks, there's a limit to what you can do. They were building, that's a typical like a pyramid type of construction, ziggurat, so there is a limit to its height. So,
For sure.
So thinking that it's going to be higher as heaven, forget about it. But
it symbolized something. There was a more spiritual aspect to it.
That's right. Spiritual symbol of the power of this one guy who is the king over all the earth. So God cannot allow this to happen. As soon as the languages became different, then
problem fell apart essentially.
Yeah, that was enough to truly
the
divide
government
them.
fell apart.
Yeah, because they were never even close. It tells us that the families of Noah, according to their generations and their nations, and from these the nations were divided on the earth after the flood. Genesis 10:32. It wasn't even they were united. They weren't it was not kumbaya. They probably had their qualms with each other, but under the threat of Nimrod, they couldn't do anything about it. But then when I guess maybe he can't confuse a people, he can't manipulate a people that he can't speak to. So I can only imagine maybe that's what.
Yeah, that's exactly because they didn't understand. They didn't have a Google Translate.
Yeah.
So at first it was just, whoa, what are you talking about? Because it's actually linguists prove the scientific validity of the story because you have languages are divided into groups and families. Within the families, you can have similar words and roots and stuff like this. Sometimes it's confusing. When you get to Paris, don't be afraid to buy something in the store under the sign poison because it's poisson, fish.
Yeah, literally, but it's spelled poison.
And when it's written pain, it's not where you buy your opiates, it's your bakery. In French, pain is the bread.
Literally.
Could never learn French.
Yeah. But sometimes in a different settings, if you have English, French, German, you can laugh. But Turkish, forget about it. It's going to be way different. I don't understand, any single word in Turkish.
Yeah.
There's no similarity. It's way different language. But you asked me, Monique, which language did people speak at the beginning? And I can tell you what my teacher, Professor, he's not alive, but Gerhard Hazel told me. In verse 10, take a look at verse 10. I don't have to read it, but it says, this is the generations of Shem. So you have Shem, and then you have this lineage of the sons of Shem, which goes all the way down to Abraham. And it kind of repeats what already been written in Genesis 10. But in Genesis 10, you have this like a genealogy trees, and this genealogy is kind of linear from ancestor to descendant and down from Shem all the way to Abraham. So I agree with Professor Hazel that he supposed that this is the list of people who did not participate in the construction of the Tower of Babel.
So the original language still survived.
Yes, so they were there. The question is, it means that Abraham's language
Would have been the original.
was the original language. And it says that for example, Deuteronomy 26, verse 5, it talks about Abraham. He was Aramean.
So Aramaic
Aramaic
would
language.
have been the very first original language.
Yeah, that was the original language of Abraham. Hebrew developed out of Aramaic later. So Hebrew was not a language of Abraham. Hebrew was a language of Moses. So, to make it simple and linguistic, but that's Aramaic language. And what's is beautiful, because who spoke Aramaic? Jesus spoke Aramaic.
I was like, I don't know. I feel like that was a trick question.
No, I know. Every time.
Yeah, so that was Jesus and people in Galilee at this time, they spoke the language, which was the language of Abraham. Of course, developed a little bit, but nevertheless, so that was the original language. And Aramaic didn't use this hefty, crazy cuneiform.
He really made sure they can communicate.
Literally, because if that's what you got after the Tower of Babel, I'd be confused too. And I hope that lesson answered some questions for you. I hope you're not confused. I hope there's a lot of things you got to learn. And if there's something you'd like to learn more about, leave it down in the comments. We read all of them, and we're so excited to keep the conversation going even after the cut. Thanks for watching. Please keep watching, subscribe to the channel, like the video, hit that bell so you don't miss the next one, and see you next time. Bye-bye.